pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Apologies for starting meeting a few minutes late. It's one of those days. I've rearranged the agenda a little bit because our Community Housing Board Chair, Ms. Hanley, has other commitments. So I wanted to get you on the agenda first to make an announcement for us, and then we will go to the public comment section. So please come on up.
Thank you very much for putting me first and respecting the tax season. But I'm really excited to talk to you guys today. So you may remember, so we got the $2 million ADU grant last year. We found out last Christmas. It's my Christmas present last Christmas. From the state of New York, we were one of 10 municipalities that was awarded the grant. And we have been able to, we don't have all of them, all 18 units yet, but we have them all in process. And so I went back to the CDCLI in the state of New York and I said, could we have some more, please? And they said yes. And we found out this week, or last week, so we have been awarded an additional $1.5 million to build ADUs. And so again, these will be, the first 2 million represents at least 18 units. This next $1.5 million will represent another 12 units. And again, these grants are going to local homeowners of median income to help them have reoccurring revenue, or they can rent them to families. And they are, while they are not limited to be affordable rentals, they are limited to be year-round rentals, and there will be a yearly accounting of year-round leases. So that's a very tightly managed process, but we are just so excited. So in total, this will be 28 units, expanding the year-round rental stock on the island. And it is our hope that this should relieve a lot of pressure on our housing situation while we work on other items. So we're really, really excited. I've been in contact with the CDCLI this week. We are probably we're going to work with my board. We are planning on doing another public information session probably in the next 2 weeks because we know there's a bunch of pent up demand. I've got a ton of people on the waiting list. And I want to make sure that they understand how to put these applications together. And I'm working with the CDCLI to figure out when's the soonest we can open the second round of applications. So I just wanted to give you guys the good news and let you know what we've been up to.
That's great.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's fantastic.
It's a testament to all your hard work and getting it organized and rolled out and getting people involved and interested and getting them to want to put their time into it, because it's a big process. Building anything is a process, and then trying to do it with grant funding is a lot. So you guys have done an amazing job rolling this out.
And I also just kind of wanted to speak to a little bit, we Shelter Island, I'm so proud of us. We have actually, New York State is actually looking for us to represent this program because we have been the most successful of any of the municipalities. We've gotten the money out faster. We've had the most community involvement. So we'll probably be doing some press with some of our local families. And then also just to be super real about it, we have gone faster than anybody thought we would, especially for such a tiny town. So I have been working closely with the CDCLI in the last week or two to make sure that this second round is as seamless as we can. And so just making sure that we have shared information so that if any of the public are reaching out, asking where their application is, that we just have more, that we're just kind of able to get back to them faster. They just didn't anticipate the little town that could. So, but we'll be ahead of it for this next round.
Liz, you and your whole committee are my new heroes. And, our need is painful and you guys are, you've really stepped up. It's amazing. Anything I can do to help.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your guys' support. Do you guys have any questions or?
No, I was just going to say that the fact that you have so many applicants for the program just shows how much there is a need and people do have a desire to do this. It's just that funding is always a barrier for a lot of people. And so it's really going to fill a gap. And it's great.
We're really excited. Cool.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I've switched up public comments to the beginning. So if there's anything that someone wants to speak to that's not on the agenda. Okay, then we will move on to the monthly update from the Superintendent of Highways and Commissioner of Public Works.
All right, so just a couple things. We still have bids out on the Congdon Dock bulkhead. We're going to be opening them April 1st. We've just put out an RFP for the monitoring wells at the landfill. We're going to be putting in 3 additional monitoring wells. And so that's going out to bid too. They should be open by the 12th of April. We had an ambulance barn RFP that went out. It came back. We opened it last week. We only had one bid. So I've elected to resubmit, do another RFP. It's going in the papers this week. Suffolk Times, New York, and the Reporter as well for the ambulance barn. So hopefully we're going to get some more bids on that. And that would be scheduled to be open on the 19th of April. We continue to, the crew is working down in Silver Beach right now doing tree trimming and roadside trimming on the right of ways. So far, so good. It seems to be, for the most part, I think people are pretty happy with what's happening out there. And the guys have been working hard at it. We've been in and out of the rain, so that's been a little tough, but okay. Just standard sort of pothole repairing as well. And we're getting ready to start grinding the brush pile. It's starting to, it's been building up, as I'm sure a lot of people have seen, but our grinder was down. We were having a computer issue with it, but they're in the process of getting it all fixed. It's almost finished. So I think next week we should be able to start attacking that pile, which will be good. It's getting to be, it's going to be mulch and landscaping season. So the mulch pile is ready to be, hopefully people come start taking it, and we're making topsoil right now too. So screening topsoil. Yeah, and then we'll be starting, we're going to be starting dry wells. We got a number of dry well projects. I have a couple of areas specifically picked out to start with. And so we're going to be hoping to start that in the first probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks of April. And other than that, yeah, I think that's about it as far as high points going on.
A couple of items that we wanted to address was your last month's report created a little bit of controversy.
Okay.
We have some members of the audience here who I think have some questions.
Okay.
One of the issues was the gate on Bowditch Road.
Okay.
So the move to change that has created conversation about what was originally put into the plan when the highway barn was moved from Southbury Road to Menantic Bowditch Road area. And so we had dug up the traffic study that was done at the time and gone through that to see what was said in the traffic study. And so there's, just to give you the highlights from that, and this was sent to the rest of the town board, but I'm just, for the public that's not aware of it. The existing asphalt parking area along Bowditch Road would be redesigned with a separate entrance and exit access points and restricted for use by highway department employees only. This parking area, which would accommodate all department employees' personal vehicles, will remain separate from the rest of the site with fencing. And it was anticipated the impact that this new traffic will have on the surrounding roadways will be minimal. Consider including provisions to restrict their truck fleet to utilize the existing access point servicing the solid waste and recycling transfer facility located along the Natchez Road, with one exception being that a gated access point currently present along Bowditch Road be kept in use during storm management operations for exiting right turn only maneuvers. And then at the time this traffic study was done, it was looking at both Southbury Road location as well as the Menantic Bowditch Road location. And the conclusion was under either scenario, there'll be no need to widen the roadways, divide turn lanes, nor will there be a need to install a traffic signal. So I think what's come to light, and I'll let members of the public come up and address this, is your plan is to allow access for just people who want to go to the highway building, your offices.
Correct.
Employees, the plan is to still have them enter and exit via Menantic Road.
Well, what I'd done was I told the employees that they could come and go through that gate if they wanted to arrive in the morning. It's usually only about half of the crew really that comes in and uses that. Some of the guys that live on the southern portion of the island, I think, still use the Menantic Road entrance. And yes, for the public to be able to access the office. But I've eliminated I've told the crew, going back before our last meeting even, that I don't want any of the no large trucks, none of the trucks actually to go in and out of there, no equipment to go in and out of there. And I've instructed also a lot of our vendors that we use as far as like Riverhead Building Supply, spoke to this morning about it. I know my secretary, Catherine, has spoken to UPS and FedEx to try to, encourage them to still come in through the Menantic Road entrance and to not use that access point. So it would mostly be just for my staff and for the public to gain access to me in the office.
With respect to people who see the gate open, driving through to get to the recycling area, what are you putting in place to prevent that?
Well, I don't have anything in place at the moment to prevent that. I haven't seen that particularly as an issue since I've started, since we started opening that gate and utilizing it. Barring like I said, posting a sentinel or something at the gate, I don't really have a way other than monitoring it myself when I'm there. But I think generally the public that needs to access the recycling center and the contractors that need to access the recycling area for, construction debris waste and to get mulch and topsoil, et cetera. I think they're all continuing to use the Menantic Road, entrance. I mean, so I haven't seen it as a problem yet, but I continue to monitor it, and I'm aware that of some of the concerns, and I think we've been paying attention.
Anyone at this table have any comments on this?
No.
Okay, I will open up. I have other topics that I want, things that have come to light from your
Okay.
last meeting, but
Sure.
open up to the public if anyone wants to speak. If you don't state your name for the public, because we've got people on Zoom who are listening as well.
Without a trip. I wonder if you got my email this morning with all the documentation that I sent.
Yes, it was yes,
Do
it
you have
was
any
the
questions for me about the documents that I sent?
No, yeah, and actually, I don't know if everyone got a chance to look at it. I was in between meetings, so.
This morning, I didn't get a chance to read it.
Okay, yeah, the highlighted part from the secret negative declaration was, the traffic study found that traffic from the new highway building should primarily enter and exit through the Menantic entrance of the recycling center. And this recommendation will be incorporated into the plans. It is anticipated that moving all highway operations to a single location will have an overall increase in efficiency and decrease in traffic. This, together with the relatively minimal increase in traffic generated by the facility, leads to the conclusion that there will not be significant adverse impacts on traffic. So that was from the secret. And then you did send along 2 Shelter Island Reporter clips. I think one was from editorial that just stated that there will be no regular traffic on Bowditch Road from the new barn. If it is located there, regular access would be through the recycling center to and from Napchick Road. Only in storms would the Bowditch Road access be used. And then embedded in a large article that I'm not sure what, maybe it's reporting on.
It was reporting on the
Oh, work.
moving of the barn.
Yeah, so access to the Bowditch Road site would be through the existing roadways off of the Napchick Road. The Bowditch Gate would be used only during storms with trucks limited to right turns to avoid the road's more settled residential area.
So we found precedent after precedent. I started looking, I read hundreds of Shelter Island reporters and minutes and various different things to see where the breakdown happened and what happened when and where. And for 20 years prior to 2004, there were conversations about repairing that building, fixing that building, moving that building, doing things like that. 2024, no, 2004 is when everything came to a head. And the residents of Bowditch Road and all of that area came to the town board because the town board was ready to decide. I sent this to you. They were ready to decide that it was going on that Bowditch with the original plan. The neighborhood wasn't for that, neither were the employees. So then conversations started happening for it to go to a vote. Meetings happened, the traffic study they commissioned. I explained it all to you in my message. As it played out, they incorporated the information from the traffic study into everything. And all of the public meetings, they don't have minutes. The closed door meetings don't have minutes. But basically, all of the language from the time that traffic study came out changed. Everything at that point was saying that there would be no access on Bowditch Road. It would be closed, not a problem. And so for 20 years, that's what's happening. For 20 years now, no one has used the brigade on Bowditch Road. And it has been a godsend to us because in the last couple of months, it has been a disaster. There are big trucks coming and going. There's backhoes coming and going. There are delivery trucks coming and going. There are not people just coming from that study. It said there were people just coming early in the morning and just leaving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's not happening. People are coming and going all day long with town trucks, with their own personal vehicles. They come and go for lunch. They come and go for breakfast. It was open on Sunday. It was open on Saturday. There were people there in the evening hours. It's getting dark. That gate has been open an excessive amount of time, and there are people cutting through to the recycling center. I work from home. I live across the street. There are people going to and from that building, cutting through. Tourists stopped short in front of me the other day, went down, drove around, looked around. I pulled over. They drove back out. Open gate. They're in there looking around. For 20 years, the precedent is that this gate has been closed. They did that because of the traffic study. They did that because the residents came and said that it was a hazard. There's also documentation in there about the trajectory of the traffic coming up the hill. I mean, there's a lot of information put in there. And every town board before you, since this study, has kept the gate closed. Every highway department has kept the gate closed. They paid attention to the people in that neighborhood when we said, or I wasn't there, but when they said, do not do this to our neighborhood. They paid attention and they didn't do this to our neighborhoods. Only now are we being bombarded with all of this craziness of the gate open and people coming and going. He says he's toned it down to tell people not to come and go. Any coming and going is not good. We have people in wheelchairs. There's more than one person on our street in wheelchairs. There are children, there are strollers. I can't walk my dogs. It is a hazard to our safety, our health, and our quality of life. We would like it to remain closed. We would like some sort of resolution for it to remain closed so that we don't have to keep coming and doing this year after, with the next administration. The gate should be closed. It was adopted that way. It's been that way for 20 years. We have precedent. We'd like it to stay that way. I've sent you a ton of documentation. We've been trying to do this for a couple months now prior. So I would appreciate it if you pay attention to the things that we sent and you take into consideration the disturbance that you're doing to the community.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I want to say something. I My name is Rob Walker. I used to work for the highway department, and I was involved with every aspect. Before it was recycled. I was in the dirt. We built the whole place. Every superintendent of highways respected the island, the community, and the town. Nobody used a right-hand turn. I plowed blizzards. I'll tell you right now, we plowed every winter when it used to snow. And we rarely, if maybe a couple of times, used that gate. Because it was grandfathered. We knew that you're not supposed to use the gate. Al Kill, Mark Ketchum, God rest his soul. Jay Carr, every highway superintendent never used that gate. I lived across the street, and I'll tell you how I got to work. I drove out my driveway, back down my driveway. I made a right on Babbage. I made a left on Manana. I made a left to go into the recycling center. When I got done with work, after plowing all night long, I went out Mananic Road. I made a right, and I came back home. I didn't go out the gate. I went out like a regular person was supposed to do. And that's what the laws said that they did. They made it for the people to abide by the rules. Now, the new guys don't want to abide by the rules. If you leave a gate open, you know as well as I, a back door gate, front door gate, I don't care what kind of gate, they're going to use it. People are going to use it. If somebody comes to the island, like Peter said, doesn't know and sees a gate open, they're going to pull in. That's what life's about. Just close the gate and everybody is happy. You don't need the gate. Well, you know you don't need the gate. Just close the gate. That's all I'm asking. I didn't put 30 years of my life into the town and everything else to be treated like this because some new guy comes into the place and says, oh, look, it makes it easy to go to my office. Everybody went to your office this way for 30 years, 20 years. And now all of a sudden they got a gate open. And I see the people, Keith was right, I see him going in and out of there. I know what the guy's like. I worked with the guys, okay? That's all I'm saying. For the safety of the community. And now you got Source at the top of the hill, 6 apartments there. You think that's gonna create more traffic? No, won't create more traffic. Nobody's coming out of there. I mean, come on, you got a hill, you come over the hill, here's your gate. You can't even use the gate. The reason they go through Mananic is the bigger trucks can't make that turn. That's why we never used the gate. It was on the right through wet garbage. In the old days, you drove in there, and we sat in there and you threw your garbage. It's not made for turns. That's why the right-hand turn, and if you make a left, you're going over a double yellow. I got cops coming in and out of there, over the double yellow. They're the police department. They're supposed to protect and serve and protect and abide by the laws that we have in this town. If they don't abide by the laws, what makes you think the highway department's gonna? I worked there 30 years. I know what they're like. That's all I really got to say. Because I get going and cheat.
Hi, Christine. Just, if nothing else, just a request. So that property is in C zone. So there is, sorry.
You know who you are, but say your name for the audience. Oh, you did? Okay.
So I'm a resident, I live at the other end. The traffic in and out of the gate doesn't really impact me unless I'm coming out of my driveway and there's a big truck coming. Sometimes that's unexpected. But my request would be that since your facility is located in a C zone, there's no industrial zone on Shelter Island. Everything you do there is should be part of a site plan. So if you want to change the use of what's been there for 20 years, the minimum that we should have would be a proposal of, where you're going to put stuff, how the traffic patterns are going to change. All that stuff should be part of a site plan, should be a public hearing, all that kind of stuff. I think to just turn the situation down there and the use of the property, again, has been what it is for 20 years. And, so if you do propose to change things, I think before it happens, I think there needs to be, traffic study perhaps again. Again, there's a big giant house there. There's been trucks lined up on the side of that road. That's a blind hill. There's nothing to warn you when you come over the top of that hill. Now you got all kinds of cars on the one side. You got people backing out of a driveway that's right on top of that hill. And you're going to have trucks coming in and out. It's going to become, a danger zone. So
The construction's been problematic there. Just
Really,
as far as all the cars on the side of the
Sure.
road, it's
you're standing out in the middle of the road having
There's no line of
conversations and
sight.
coffee. And again, you come over the top of that hill and you're, whoa. So again, I think being a responsible property owner and you're non-conforming to begin with, and you're doing some heavy industry in there. I think, I think we all should really get a handle on, what the proposed use is gonna be. Because if it's gonna change, then, you're setting another precedent for that. And I think, again, just minimal, I think you should have a site plan here. Okay.
I didn't sign in or anything.
That's okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you just have to come up and state your name.
How are you? Lance Mellison, and I'm like right across the street from the gate. My historical perspective from 20 years ago was thinking, great, I'm going to get my road plowed first, because that was kind of the only time that that gate was going to be open, is in the middle of a blizzard, get the trucks out quick. I would hope that they would drop the blade right in front of my house. The only other thing, and I really didn't even remember this until this morning, I had a front row seat to what could have been a catastrophe. Early last summer, late last spring, I was walking the dogs, and for some reason I went down towards Chris's house, and as I was coming back with the dogs, heading east, I could hear something big coming up the hill, like from Petter's place. And we were just about to the skate park, and all of a sudden I see the big bucket loader come over the crest of the hill. That's fine. They're heading to the highway department. Gate was open, and following close behind was some sort of small vehicle that was in a rush. And as that bucket loader went to turn left into that gate, simultaneously, this guy in the little car behind him was tired of waiting and went to turn to go around the left side as the bucket loader's planning on making a left turn into that gate. Well, let me tell you, I just closed my eyes and waited for the crash. And it could have been a catastrophe. That bucket loader would have just demolished this little whatever subcompact thing that it was. There wouldn't have been anything left. And I think it was Aiden Misleborski was actually driving them. And I saw him a few weeks later, and I said, thank God you have young reactions, because that could have been ugly. That's the problem with that hill right there. And bigger trucks and maybe not nimble vehicles getting in there using that gate. If that bucket loader was going straight and turning left on Mananic, that car would have never even thought about it. But now, as he turned left, we almost had a vehicular death on our hands. So I don't really see the need. I don't think there's a huge traffic pattern of the public going into that building. I think there's employees and vendors, and vendors are going to have an easier time on Mananic Road. So I don't see the need for it. And as long as I can still get my road plowed first in the snowstorm, that's fine. Thank you for your time.
I would like to point out that everything that car did was 100% illegal. It passed on the left on a double yellow.
And nobody ever does that.
Hill, like, that's not smart. That was not smart on their part, like, not smart.
That's just not a good spot.
No, it's not. It's a blind hill, I understand that.
Honest,
Yeah,
that's coming out of his place even worse.
I know.
It's just, the gate, to me, it's a mood issue. To me, the gate just, if the gate's closed, then it's over. Nobody uses the gate. You don't need the gate. That's a backdoor gate. That's exactly what we called it. And we never used it, I'm telling you now. Only in the blizzard we used it, and very seldom. So, I mean, it's irrelevant, really. It's just like, if the gate's closed, the gate's closed. And everybody, the process still works the same. They don't, when they leave, when they leave the recycling center, say a big truck, it's Ronnie Turner, for an example. He doesn't go out the exit, he goes out the do not enter gate, because he can't make that exit gate turn with that truck. So there's so much more room in the recycling, when you come into recycling, it's a big open parking lot, there's nothing about it. That's why they closed it. That's exactly why they closed it. Now all of a sudden, things have changed. I don't know, it should be on that.
I was gonna say, if you keep coughing, I'm gonna be dragging you.
It's worked fine for 20 years. It's not broken, let's not fix it.
John Cronin, former town engineer. I don't have a dog in the fight, but there is one very good point that was made by these folks, and that's the point that Chris Teagan raised. during the time that Jay Card and I worked together, me as the town engineer, Jay as the highway superintendent, we had an agreement between both of us that we would do nothing on Shelter Island without getting a permit the same way a citizen would have to get a permit. And that's the way we approached the job. So if you're going to make a change that would normally be subject to site plan review, I would submit that a town entity should be submitting a site plan review the same way you would expect to get that from a commercial property owner or another citizen. So I think Chris's point is well founded. I haven't researched any of this, so I'm uncertain about the exact requirements, but I know that Chris spent a long time in the building department and knew full well when site plan reviews would be necessary. So this is the kind of thing that, to me, should be looked at the same way you would look at any citizen or any business needing to make a change on their property. Thank you.
Anyone else in the physical audience? Anyone else on Zoom who wishes to speak on this? On this topic, we'll continue to have further conversations, but I did have a couple other highlights that I wanted to just go over. The light pollution, especially on the side of the building that faces the salt barn. I was going by there one night. There was a really low cloud ceiling that night, and just the light, I was like, oh my gosh, I understand
That's right.
where this flame is coming from. So do you want to speak to how you're?
Yeah, so I've been trying to, I've been in there a couple of evenings myself at night. I'm trying to ascertain on the panel. There's a little bit of confusion on the actual panel as to what's controlling those lights. But I'm going to be speaking with Dave McGee. I had to talk to him about something else. I'm going to try to get the lights. I'm going to try to get all the lights put on a switch. The lights that are on the Bowditch Road side of that building are on a switch in the building. I'm having a hard time locating the breaker that shuts off all those lights, but my plan is to make it so we can turn those off at the very least. I'll shut them off at the breaker and they'll all be off. And then we will, I'm going to explore the options of trying to put them on switches, just so we can easily turn them on and off when we need them I don't personally see the need for them to be on from a security standpoint, as long as they're on anyway. I mean, they are on a photocell, so it may even be just a matter of switching out the photocell on them. I can ask Dave about that as well, but I'm in agreement that the lights don't need to be on, and I'd prefer to just have them so I can turn them on when we need them. Like I said, in an emergency, in a snowstorm, if we get a call out in the middle of the night for a tree down or something, just so guys can see what they're doing. But I am in the process of getting them shut off, at least while when we're not in use.
A little bit that's maybe related to that, maybe it's not so much the lighting, is you recently cleared the Bowditch Road side of the building. You took the branches up off the trees, so the lights.
Yeah, again, those lights, the lights on the Bowditch Road side are on a switch, so I've had them shut off. I mean, I turned them off. And I happen to be that person that's in that building late at night lately, so it's been me. And, but we did, yes, I elevated the trees. It came to mind, I noticed it when the construction was going on across the street and there was a lot of people parked on sides of the roads. And I noticed how, the tree limbs were laying down low, making it difficult for the guys parking on the shoulder, et cetera. I'm also of the opinion that, Brian started it before I came in. We're actively talking to homeowners and working on cutting back the shoulders around the road all across the island. So I figured if I'm going to preach it, I should practice it as well. And so I wanted to elevate those trees, prune them up. And my plan is to also, I'm going to plant some sort of hedge type material, maybe a skip laurel or something on the inside of that fence, on the, the highway building side of the fence, that'll be underneath those, they'll be underneath those pines, but on this fence side. So it'll give, create more of a better vista for the neighborhood and also just give a little blockage to the building. It's my, and I, and we cut the trees back in the wintertime when it was dry and able to do it. And now that we're getting into spring, it's on my list of things as part of beautification of that side of the building.
The green space area, just that changes have taken place there.
The green space area, as far as the main green space area that abuts all those homes on the Monantic Road side of the green space area, really hasn't been changed. If anything, I took dead material out that was actually downed material from years of guys, employees, used to stockpile wood up there and stuff from jobs or whatever. And I cleaned all that out. I actually did that work myself when I was, a member of the highway department before I was in my current position, and cleaned out just all the dead stuff around there. And I've replanted grass seed up there. The whole area is green still. I think there's some concern about the area where the cat colony is, or the former cat colony is. And I've just gotten the name of the woman that, used to manage the cat colony, and I'm going to try to reach out to her. I don't even know that there's any cats in the cat colony anymore. I don't think so. I mean, occasionally I see one or a cat sort of cruising around, but if there's no cat colony, I don't see the need for the cat. I think there's 3 or 4 cat houses that are in there. But I've never really done anything. I mean, me personally, and since I've been in office, we haven't really done anything with that area as far as anything to the cat colony area. So, but I'm happy to, if there's no cats, I'm happy to remove the houses if that's what everybody wants. And that'll be the only thing that's not really a forever green in there. I mean, I guess there is, we do have the dog pound that is in the forever green area. And that has been there as long as I've been a member of the highway department. And so I don't know, if somebody wants to discuss removing that, or I don't know, but it's been there as long as I can recall. We cleaned it up just recently to see it, to try to make it just in case Jennifer has to put an animal in there temporarily. But other than that, we haven't done really anything about it. So as far as I'm concerned, it's still forever green. And I know we do occasionally, like I said, I think I told you at the last meeting, we had a couple of floating docks that we had up there temporarily. They've been removed since and put back in the water. And occasionally there's maybe a boat trailer or something up there, but those can also be easily moved if everybody's not happy with that.
Ken, just jumping back to the lighting question again.
Mm-hmm.
Since the trees have been trimmed a little bit, they're more exposed. Is there a different lighting solution that would help mitigate that situation?
There might be, Ben. I mean, I think the lights, what happened was we redid a lot of the lighting around the building, the bulbs on the building, because they were starting to fail and some were not working, and they were replaced with LED bulbs, and LED bulbs are very bright. And I don't, again, I mean, maybe there's some sort of, maybe we could put some sort of shielding on them, but honestly, I personally don't, I am okay with them being off and only utilized when we need them, for early in the morning, if guys are coming in and need to have the lights on to be able to see what's going on in the trucks when it's still dark out. So I'm okay with doing it. I mean, as far, and just having it, like I said, if I can put them on a switch, what makes it easier instead of going in and trying to always flip the panel all the time and do something, that's what I'd like to do. I mean, I am the son of the author of Dark Skies, so I probably should be a little more, I should probably tone them down a little bit at the very least for it, so.
Just about to remind you of that.
Thank you. How could I forget?
It's Christine again.
Yeah.
I didn't want to mention any names, but since you brought your mom's up, I was told when I was the building inspector that shortly after they passed that Dark Skies law, which I don't believe has an exemption for the town, by the way, they changed every fixture in this complex to non-compliant fixtures. And when I asked your mother and I asked the town attorney, oh, well, we're a town, we're exempt. I don't believe there's an exemption for the town, so I think every light on every town facility should be checked out and make sure they're all either shielded or somehow code compliant, if it's not. There's nothing in the town code that allows for that. Thank you.
I'll add it to my list.
I think you had your hand up before. Did you have your hand up before or no? Oh,
So brought up the dog kennels, she just discovered this whenever she was.
Here, you can see it.
I'll speak to the green space. When we were looking at Discovery, we found that there was a resolution to remove the dog kennel from that space, and it was done in 2005, and still hasn't been moved. And it was a resolution.
Yeah.
And as far as the green space is concerned, when we were in your office, we pulled up and it's not on the Suffolk map. I think Chris went to the assessors, it's not on the map.
Mhm.
None of the information was delineated there, so how do we couldn't find the green space except for in our historic documents.
Yeah, because on the town GIS as well as the tax maps, it's not separated out, and it's just part of the town-owned property.
Right.
So even though we know where the line is, just from a visual,
And so what keeps, if it's not actually on the Suffolk County map, what keeps our memories from remembering that is there if it's not on the map, since we don't remember the agreement that we made for the
what I
cave?
want to do, that's more of a legal question, so Stephen's on
It's in the
Zoom.
deed, but it needs to get filed.
Yeah, so Stephen, I'm going to task you with follow-up on that, please.
Sure.
You
We
broke
have
up.
a lot of historic documents, there's just nothing represented to have folks like you remember that they actually exist.
Amber, you got this thing, right? It shows you the easement?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a
I
email.
sent it.
Yeah, it's in the
Yes.
email.
That's not what I surveyed.
Yeah, so I'll make sure we forward all that to you, Stephen.
All right, sure.
And today on a tour, just sort of the last thing that I had on my list for you, done torturing you.
It's okay.
It's, I saw like you were turning over something at the landfill and there's smoke coming out. So just fire management, that kind of like just keeping that down, like what you're doing there too.
Yeah, well, Brett was up there today. He's flipping the leaf mulch, which is, from the composted leaves and the breaking down the leaves. So this is that pile is on its last phase of, its last flip, and then it'll start, continue to break down. And then we'll start trucking that material from the leaf mulch area up to the topsoil area where we do the screening of the topsoil. So it's going to sit for a little while now. We try to stay as actively involved in watching all of these. We've never really had too much of a problem with the leaf mulch as far as, I think, you're seeing some steam coming off of it today for sure. But it hasn't posed a problem like, say, the mulch pile has at times. I don't think the heat generated in it is necessarily the same. But we're actively pursuing it. As a matter of fact, after I think the last time I spoke, there was some talk about that a well that's on the property, and so I've talked to Jay. I went back. Jay was the one who initially worked with the county to have that put in there as a possible area that we could put a hydrant if we had to someday. But we stay on top of it pretty well, I think. I mean, we did have some flare-ups, but we do have the water. We have our water truck or our water trailer that during the height of the season we also keep that available. And the guys are all pretty proficient. The guys that know how to run the excavator know how to. I mean, I did it myself. Right before I got into office here, I was part of, helping stomp it out the last time too. So, we stay on top of it pretty well. And I think, it's just one of those things when you have that massive material, it's going to happen sometimes.
Got a lot of material.
Yes, we do. We have a lot of material.
Any questions, further questions for me? I do kind of like the idea of site plan review for the moving of the gate.
Good argument.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, in the next week, take a closer look at that and
Good. Yes,
we'll take a look at it.
definitely.
Or so. Any other public comment before we let Kenny go? Yeah, everyone.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is fertilizer legislation. Pause for a second. Well, you want me to move it off the fertilizer legislation? Okay, well, Stephen made some edits based upon last week's meeting. And we had,
Back out.
yes, it was sent back out. There was a
Sent out
draft,
again.
I don't know, it was, the draft is dated 3/21/24. I think it went up on the website. I don't know what day it
It
is.
came through email.
Yeah, but it was also put up on the calendar as well. Just to get a time frame here. Yeah, I think it was posted either Thursday or Friday, because I know we posted the agenda, so I think we tried to get all the documents up by Friday as well. Okay, so the changes are highlighted in yellow, but I think there's still a little bit more to be.
I didn't get the email.
It was Thursday at what time? Sometime on Thursday.
If you go to the town website, discussion documents, the latest draft is here as well.
Okay, yeah, no, that wasn't on the email.
Which one am I looking for?
You want me to just run through the changes real quick?
Yes, please, yeah, because I've got like the Lisa draft, the other draft, this new draft, so. Yeah.
All right, so, we changed the definition of lawn fertilizer to make it clear that it does not include compost. That was raised. We removed in 67-2 any involvement by the building department regarding soil tests. And in 67-3, we added C that said these are regulations regarding all fertilizers. No person shall apply lawn fertilizer in a manner that causes, permits, or allows fertilizer to enter storm drains or any other man-made stormwater receptacles or channels. As far as exceptions, 67-4, I added bona fide agricultural operations and nurseries. And then again, for backyard farmers, vegetable or fruit growth. And then penalties, we wanted a floor, and that was suggested to be $500. So the fine of at least $500. So those were the changes based upon comments from the last work session. And Christina, when did we have this up?
Thursday. Yeah, so it was posted on time, but yeah. I guess, I mean, the question, like, that I keep circling back to in my mind is what are we trying to accomplish? And what is actually enforceable?
Yeah, I don't think the soil test is really
Enforceable or going to be beneficial, because any of the labs you send to are for agricultural basis and they have a different standard than the residential lawn does. So I don't, it doesn't make sense. I don't think it's necessary.
All right, yeah, but the ag operations are exempt from that section. And that
Well,
section is,
No, the comment is more, and I had a meeting with a couple of people from the landscape business who showed me some test results where they sent soil tests out to labs, and they're mostly located in the Midwest, and they came back with, okay, you need 6 pounds of fertilizer because of this test. But local knowledge, like this is not an agricultural use, this is lawn, and therefore this contractor would only use half of that to maintain a healthy lawn. So the information that's coming back isn't necessarily localized enough for what we're trying to do.
And it's prescriptive for commercial use.
Right.
Right, yeah. And also, how do we enforce this? So there's two problems that I'm having with this.
We enforce it because, like, if, again, we get a call that someone is administering fertilizer, then code enforcement goes and asks for their soil test. If they can't provide it, you're right, a violation. But again, this is redundant to some degree because the state requires any phosphorus-based lawn fertilizer to have a soil test before it's administered. This one went a little further and said any lawn fertilizer. So we can shelve that because again, you have at least the phosphorus that's already being regulated by the state.
Lisa, having you here and you were part of the working group, do you want to shed any light onto the inclusion of this in the legislation? Like if we're thinking of taking it out, what are we missing?
Well, we're talking about 67-2, right?
Right.
So we took out as reviewed and approved in writing by the building department. That's scratched.
Yes.
We didn't have this in our original language. It is redundant, and I don't think it's a problem including it in this language, but I agree, enforcement, how do you, I don't know how it gets enforced. It's here, in my head, I'm reading it as a homeowner, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what they would like me to do. That's it. So is this enforceable? Is this enforceable, and will it be subject to the penalties in 67.5 if I don't do it? I'm kind of just thinking through the process here.
If we require a written soil test or documentation, yes, it's enforceable. But and it's my understanding that before licensed landscapers do administer fertilizer, and they do 99% probably of lawn care, that they're going to do a soil test.
Right, and I agree.
It's going after the ne'er-do-wells.
So 99% are done by, our local respectable lawn care people. And so this is directed at a really small segment, and we want to subject them to $500 or up to $2,000 a day. Okay.
This is all environmentally driven. And what kind of impact are we really going to make? I mean, I understand, like, it's nice to reiterate the use, between November and April, not putting it on impervious surfaces. It's all stuff that's coming out of the county code. I like having it here, those types of things here, because if we see bad behavior, we can do something locally and not have to wait for the DEC to come in and enforce this. I feel like that might have a bigger impact. I'm not sure about the test, like for, as you say, 1% of whatever the true number is.
I think the test is overreach, but
and you didn't see this when you were researching other.
Oh, yeah. Well, we didn't see this as codified, but we did see it as a best practice in some of the language in other townships, the ones that we looked at. I think Barnstable, Mass was one. So that's in Massachusetts, and I don't know what the legal arm of that was, but it was in a best practice clause, if you will. I don't know if it was connected to the penalties. So, yeah, we have seen the soil testing, and we've seen a lot of other, we saw a lot of other language that had to do with this.
Lake George actually had it.
Okay. And, I don't see it as a problem, but if it's a problem for enforcement, then that's something that you have to think about. And if I could just go back to what you were saying, Benjamin, about, I think it's really, we have to be cautious about what percentage of the population here actually uses licensed landscapers and what doesn't. There's some variation, anecdotal variation, about how many people use licensed landscapers, how many people use operators that have no licensure that's evident on their trucks. So I don't think we can safely say it's a small percentage of landscaping business on the island, because I don't personally think it is. I think it's
No,
large.
my statement of 99% was 99% of homeowners use landscapers to administer fertilizer. It wasn't that 99% are good
Okay.
actors.
What we want to do is we want to make sure those who are licensed are turning in their certifications at the time that they're registering with the building department to operate here. And if they're not operating with a license, we need to add something there to make sure.
That would seem more effective than
That's already on the book.
soil tests.
Yeah, and that's already on the,
Mhm.
that's already on the
Right.
book, as Stephen said.
Yeah,
So I
so we want to make sure that
79.
that's enforceable.
So I think we should get rid of the soil testing portion, because that I think is gonna weigh more on
Mhm.
the individual homeowner, and then they're not gonna have a good understanding on how to interpret it. And if they trust the agricultural lab that sends back the report, they'll be overdoing it for most labs are on a commercial, like agricultural basis, so they over provide their recommendation for nitrates.
Mhm.
So I think we can kind of eliminate that portion. What I would kind of like to see is a reference to maybe the New York State and Suffolk County codes. Is that a possibility, Stephen? Just
Um,
like cite, where you can find it in New York State and Suffolk County, or is that something we should put somewhere else on the website?
yeah, that shouldn't be in the code itself, unless we were gonna enforce it. So
Okay.
I think that could be in the informational brochure. So I could take out 67-2. Are there any issues with 67-3? Again, it is slightly redundant, but we did increase the setback for the application of fertilizer. So
I think that's
we went from,
Good thing.
it was 50, it's 50 feet to 100. We went 50 feet further back.
I think the rest of it's okay.
Mhm.
Going back to, can I ask a question now about this? Going back to having landscapers or any contractor come in and check in with, what is that process? What does a contractor have to do? Do they have to send in their licensure to the building department before they do work on the island? What is
Yes, so landscapers are considered home improvement contractors here on Shelter
Right.
Island. So they have to go through the same process that builders have to go through. And yet they have to also provide the certification from the county that they can administer fertilizer.
So would it be advisable that when they register or when they contact the building department, that they either receive information or get some kind of feedback about soil testing, et cetera? I mean, if they're certified, they're already doing it. But might that be kind of a good way to get back to them, saying, okay, this is the local law and this is this is a practice we would like you to conduct, taking soil testing? I mean, I don't know if that's, is
I
that
think
even
we,
reasonable?
no, I think we just go forward with 67-3 now.
Okay.
Because again, I'll reference what it says in the home improvement contractors section. It's 79-8E. Any applicant that will be applying fertilizer, pesticides, fungicide, herbicide, rodenticide, or any other chemical agent must provide proof of licensing by annually required federal, state, or county agency, and required training or continuing education, including Suffolk County turf management training.
They get that as part of their training.
Yeah.
Except
But can we have a quick conversation around enforcement? Because I'm not worried about the landscapers who are certified and handing in their licenses. Those guys are doing what they should be doing. The unlicensed people. And apparently for this particular subject matter, they're pretty prevalent. So is our new enforcement officer, is this in his purview?
It would absolutely be within its purview, but we're complaint driven. So we have to rely on neighbors to call code enforcement, but also we also have the state, we have the county. So they'll have 3 enforcement entities to call. This would just give us the ability to have, local enforcement powers on top of just being able to call the state or the county. But we could also work in tandem. So if it's not an enforcement officer, but if we have a town employee, I see the engineer out there, like we can even send the engineer down to make observations and prepare an affidavit to state officers or county officers. So again, we don't need our code enforcement officer to make observations for enforcement. We would if we were going to do local enforcement, but if we're going to help out the state or the county, we can send other town employees to make those observations. Because you got to be mindful as far as code enforcement, we only have him part-time. And, and the building department is, handling other matters predominantly. Obviously, if we have something that's happening in real time, we can try and get the building department involved as well.
I think this is fine. Yes, it's good. This is what we work for, the subcommittee. Yes.
I personally would like to wrap this up, set the public hearing at the next meeting, and move forward, because Albert and I were talking this morning that this contribution to our nitrates in the aquifer is just a small percentage, and we need to get this off our plate so we can start to look at IA septic,
Yes,
doing
we
more
talk,
than
I
that,
agree
because
with that.
that's going to happen.
Yes, to move forward. I would like to have more conversation at some point over enforcement or the flexibility of who could do this, who could.
Yes. We have some things in the works, not
Yeah.
ready for prime time yet, but just bringing on more code enforcement. So there's a couple of things that they're being explored, but not ready for prime time. But yeah, we have someone who's 16 hours a week, sometimes a little bit over. There's ideas out there, so working on that.
Could I very quickly address,
Yeah, just so that way the Zoom audience is able to hear.
so something, Albert, that we talked about, and I don't know if it was publicly at the WAC meeting or if it's Tim Kotel of the Green Committee and I talked about, and that was creating flyers and putting them in the windshield or in the door of trucks that we would drive by, because I have no compunction about driving by trucks this summer and giving them all kinds of information. I just feel like that's one of the steps we have to do. Letting trucks that you don't see any certification or insurance information on and putting something in their truck or handing it off to whoever's doing the work and saying, oh, by the way, this is the Shelter Island law, and then giving them information about licensure, how they can get licensed, et cetera. So keeping that education part going to the landscapers. Not just springing it on them. Oh, you've got a $500 fine, but we want to work toward,
Roll it out slow, properly. Give
Right.
a chance, give everybody a chance to do the right thing.
give them a chance.
Rather people comply than
Right.
find
I
it.
think maybe that should be bilingual.
Absolutely, absolutely bilingual, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's a wrap on this topic until the public hearing. Okay.
We set the public hearing.
Yes, so Amber will put it on, she'll set the public hearing, April 15th, we will hear it, May something.
Okay.
Yeah, I have my calendar open. Make sure it's in here correctly, so I don't have to go back to it later. It'll be May 6th, we'll have the public hearing.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Just. Okay. All right. Wetlands application jurisdictional change. So a couple of things going on with this. There is a draft that was posted on the website for today. I didn't get a chance to just finish going through and making sure, no, it's actually, I think, the same draft. Stephen, is this the same draft as we worked with last week? Because I see I have comments that I probably forgot.
Yes. Yeah, nothing's been changed. Well, because I know there was a little subcommittee formed to discuss process applications.
Okay, so I still have some, in section 129-4, which is the permit procedure, I have some changes, but then our subcommittee met yesterday afternoon, and Christina handed out some flow charts from that. And what she has given you, which corrections and things were made just before this meeting. So we will get this up on the website for people to look at, but it is one of them that has the red on it was the town board existing process before we transferred the authority to the planning board, and then what the planning board process has been. The second one that doesn't have red on it is what is this?
Is currently happening?
Yeah, it's the currently happening. So one was proposed. Yeah, one was proposed and one was, so it's, a little bit of a hybrid. A lot mine. The key areas that if you look at the one that has the dual track, if we're going to take this back, one of the things that was proposed was in the old system, the town clerk reviewed the applications for completeness. For years, Dottie did a great job, but she didn't always catch everything because wetlands
Expertise.
Wetlands
not an
permits is
engineer.
very specialized. So we need to do a better job. And so what the planning board has been doing has been giving it to their engineer to take a look at and review for completeness. So we need to insert in the process, and I'm glad Joe's here. I'm just going to toss it out there, Joe, but you don't need to give an answer today. The two thoughts were that we as a town board, when we take this back, hire the Rayner Group to come in and continue to do that piece, except it wouldn't be under the planning board's expense codes, it would be under our expense codes. Or if our town engineer feels he has the experience to be able to review these applications, we could keep it in-house. You don't need to answer today. We only discussed it yesterday and I didn't get a chance to talk to you this morning to spring this on you. But I will circle back on it.
The look in your face is not good.
I can't see, the podium's in the way. Yeah. Another piece that we didn't really feel was happening when the town board had this is CAC makes site visits before they make their recommendations to town board then, planning board now, and the planning board has site visits. I don't feel like the town board was always doing site visits, so we want to build that into the process. So that's on here. And the last change that hasn't occurred yet with the planning board, but they have reached out and have an environmentalist who would sign off on compliance with the wetlands permit. So the wetlands permits that they have opined on so far have not gotten so far down the road to be complete. So we would like to build in having an environmentalist sign off on this.
That's already in the code. We changed that.
Okay.
So
Okay, and that's-
that power is now in the code.
That was, so those were the things that came from our discussion. One of the things is, just the chart kind of shows it, but we just want to reiterate, that the CAC is, an advisory board that gets to weigh in, and planning board, they have equal weight. What's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, I was looking for that word yesterday too.
Yeah, but we make sure that we consider all the opinions that are coming to us from our advisory boards on this. So we want to just take this, and I want to go through the permit procedure section of the code to see if any of this needs to be memorialized in the code section itself. So since we only just went over it yesterday, we didn't get a chance to do that for today. So like now you have the discussion as well as an eye to looking at that as well. So that's where we stand for the moment. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I have one question for the members of the board. Do you all feel comfortable looking at a set of plans and making sure that you understand all aspects of it when you're making a ruling? It's a legit question.
It is.
That's why I'm asking it.
It is.
I do. I
Okay.
reviewed that.
Well, I do, especially with the help of the CAC and the planning board and the other reports we're building in here and the site visits that we're building in here. Yeah.
And we also recognize it's an extra workload, so our work sessions, we'll have to make room for these, and so may slow down some other stuff. But we still have to set a public hearing, have a public hearing, and adopt this before we take this on. But we're stepping along. So that's next, is just to look at section 129-4.
Yes.
And I will get you my existing comments, Stephen, as well as anything else that needs to be incorporated.
Okay.
Okay, that is that. Joe, you are up on the Fresh Pond secret information that you need to give us for the vegetation removal.
Yes, hello, everybody. So here today, just to really provide an update. So before the meeting, I emailed you two attachments. One is the joint permit application for the New York State DEC. The other is Appendix B, a short environmental form assessment for SEQRA. So the first attachment, the joint application form, is just a reference. It describes everything in this proposed permitting activity that's already been filed with the state. That process is underway, but it contains all the information that we submitted about the project details, how we plan to execute, where the product and materials will go. All that is in that particular permit application, so I sent it to you so you have that as context. The second attachment, Appendix B, is what the town board has to act on. So that is the short form SEQRA analysis, which I've completed. It's part of the permitting process. It's the only outstanding piece left to receiving the permit from the state. And to be clear, this permit is simply for the vegetation removal from Fresh Pond. You'll see in the joint application package that there's the contract we had signed last year with the vegetation removal contractor. They own a specialized piece of equipment. It's It's like a small boat with a conveyor belt. And they're based in Pennsylvania, but effectively they launch this little vessel. They drive around and it mechanically scoops up the vegetation, holds it in a hopper. They pull back up to the shoreline. They unload the hopper. And that's the process that they repeat to remove this vegetation. So that contract is in there. We had passed a resolution last year to execute that contract, but we never took on the work because the permit was never approved by the DEC. So we're hoping that this permit is just a few weeks away. That is what the state has indicated to us. And we will then seek to renew the contract. But what's outstanding and what's before you, which you would receive subsequent advice on how to move this forward by Stephen. This is sort of the nexus between the technical aspect and the legal aspect. Is the short form secret. So we don't have to talk about this today, but ultimately it'll be presented for your vote at the next town board meeting.
It should be April 15th. And
Yeah.
that timing, I think I asked you this question last week. That timing is fine.
That timing is fine. Yep. And so the short form, as you look through it, is really just a lot of yes, no questions. And the most relevant parts are part 2 and part 3. Those are the ones that I completed. Part 3, you'll notice as you review it, all of the questions result in what they categorize as no or small impact. So with that in mind, we can have any conversation that you like at a subsequent work session, or we can meet individually if there's particular questions. But my recommendation is that this is a very low impact project from a permitting perspective. So I hope we can just move this forward.
Stephen, would you be the one, or is it Amber who drafts the resolution that we need for this?
I could draft the resolution. It's, basically, what you're doing here is reviewing the EAF to either make a neg deck or a pos deck based on, since it's an unlisted action, that's why we had to go through the EAF process. So pay special attention to 2 and 3, review those, and if you feel that there's not going to be a significant adverse impact on the environment, then it's a neg deck.
Yeah, if you could circulate that so that as we review this, then we know exactly what the end is, so that we know that we're doing the process right.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
All right, next we move on to pyramid listing. Thank you, Joe. And again, we had a new draft of the pyramid legislation posted, and the changes were made, which was, adding the B and B1 zone to the 10-foot augmentation, excluding chimneys, weather vanes, non-habitable spires, cupolas, domes in the 3 different districts, A, AA, and B. Let's see. And C. And B1. So those are the changes that were made. You had ideas that you were going to start telling us about
I have
today.
ideas. I'm having problems with this pyramid legislation because I don't see it doing or solving the problem. I see it creating a lot of nonconformity, but not necessarily solving what I think people are complaining about. What people are complaining about seems to be large structures on small lots. So like, for example, Babbage Road, large structure, undersized lot, it's a non-conforming lot, it's less than an acre. And I see that being the problem. The pyramid would just cause them to reorient the structure on the lot. They could still have 6,000 square feet as long as they moved it into the middle and rotated it so it went down the rectangle. So you had the neighbor looking at a whole wall of building instead of just the flat side. So it's not going to do anything for the density, so to speak. it just changes the shape and how you orient it, but it doesn't actually modify the density. You can still have the 6,000 square feet. So what I was looking at and what we had been talking about before in the prior administration was doing a floor area ratio concept. So the building size was proportional to the lot size. And so this is something that I started working on probably 4 or 5 months ago. And it was trying to do just that. We're based on 1 acre zoning. That's technically our smallest lots are supposed to be 1 acre, and then it goes up from there, 1 acre, 2 acre. So that's A and then double A. And C zone is supposed to be based off 1 acre zoning with a 100-foot front yard. So anything under 1 acre is like a substandard lot. It's not necessarily code compliant. So most of the problems we're having are on these less than 1 acre lots. And the other issue that we have is that our C zone has 10-foot side yard setbacks, and they've had that forever. And so if we were to put the pyramid in place, it would disproportionately impact the C zone as opposed to the A or double A zone. It would also disproportionately impact B and B1 to a significant degree, because the side yard setbacks in A zone are 25 feet, the rear yard is 25 feet. So you're not going to have as much non-compliance off the bat. Double A is 30 feet. So that kind of creates its own pyramid lot anyway. So really the impact is going to be in the C zone. It's going to be in the heights, and it's going to be in the B and B1 zone. So I feel like it's not going to solve the problem that people are complaining about. So what I did was I pulled the assessor's data. I had them send it to me for square foot living area per acre. And so I have about 2,471 data points that I've been playing with for the last couple of months. And I've sorted them by quarter acre to half acre to 3/4 acre, 3/4 acre to 1 acre, 1 acre to a half acre to 2 acres, 2 to 2.5, 2.5 to 3, and then 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 7 plus, because there's only like 9 or 10 properties over that many. And then what I've been working on doing is sorting the SFLA for each property size. So sorting the square foot living area for all quarter acre lots. And so that when we go, and the argument is always, well, it's arbitrary, you're just putting a baseline on it. So my goal is to make it so that what I'm looking at is reflective of the existing conditions. Because people keep saying, well, we want to keep everything the same. Well, keeping things the same is that you're allowed to build 6,000 square feet on anything, as long as you meet the percent coverage for that lot. So what is it? It's 25% coverage for A, I think, and then 40% for C zone. And so you can get very large if you're just doing percent coverage of your lot. So I'm trying to look at a way to put a cap, but a cap that's reasonable, that doesn't create massive nonconformity and overwhelm the ZBA. Because when you do that, it now creates hardship for some people, depending on, I think if we did the pyramid law, that would be a lot of hardship for a lot of people in the C zone who, and I don't know that that's necessary, and I don't think it'll solve it. But so what I'm trying to do is place reasonable limits on substandard lot sizes, so that you can't, for example, have 6,000 square feet on a quarter acre. And so the part I'm at right now, I've done all of the SFLA per acre, but now the assessor's data is a little wonky because it's square foot living area, but it does not include finished basements and accessory buildings. So I had them run a different report. So I have all the accessory buildings in a separate report, and I am slowly one by one putting them into this database so that I can have an actual SFLA per lot. Because the building department, when they do their calculations for special permits or area variances or whatever, they do it based on all of the living area in the accessories in the primary. So we do actually want that data when trying to set a baseline based on our existing conditions. We want the existing conditions to be correct. So I'm in the middle of that. I'm halfway through dependent structures. So Christina, may I share my screen just so I can show you what I'm working on? It's not really set, but because I don't have all the data points accurate yet. But I can share it with you. And if you have an interest in me moving forward with it, I would continue to clean up the data. And then I would like to share it with the Heights, because the Heights would be impacted by this because they have the most non-conforming small lots. And see what their opinion would be. There it goes. All right. So what I have here, and these are just, none of these numbers are set. I think it's a discussion that we would have to have in order to determine what benchmarks would be appropriate. But what I've done in this spreadsheet, which is sort of just my summary, is I have in the top, you have the number of properties in the category. So it tells you how many properties. So we have 75 properties that are a quarter acre or less. And these are just residential. I did not get into commercial. It's a whole nother animal. 316 properties are a quarter acre to a half acre. 505 are half acre to 3/4 acre. 539 are quarter acre to an acre. And 563 are 1 to 1.5 acres. So I took that, and then I took the number of homes that are already greater than 600,000 square feet, and those pretty much start at 3/4 acre and then go up. And then homes that are smaller than allowed by our code. So this is something I noticed, is we have a minimum square footage that you're allowed to build. And we have a lot of structures that are in that minimum, like below that minimum. And New York State has a small house code. So they allow small structures, and they have specific code for it for 400 square foot or less. So
House on Bellevue Road.
so I had, the idea of maybe we want to eliminate that minimum if the state has code specifically for small homes. So I also did a benchmark for the highest SFLA in that lot size category, and for the largest and the smallest. So you can see what the variety is. Now, some of these you look at and you're like, wow, that's really high. Well, that's one of those pre-existing non-conforming over 6,000 square foot with the special permit, like the 13,000 square foot home in the half acre to 2 acre range. And then as I went through each one, I picked a benchmark. I just randomly started at 2,500, and then I worked up from there. And I did a couple different scenarios, right? And I did one scenario that created the most non-conforming lots, and then I did another one that created the least. And by creating the least, I meant just kept the pre-existing non-conforming, but didn't create any new non-conforming. And so under each one, I noted how many new non-conforming residences would be created. And then I broke out the Heights because I knew that the Heights would have a lot of questions. So I'm not quite finished with this yet, but so far what I have is this would be far less, it would create far less non-conformance, but it would create, I think, a fair and equitable approach to managing the density on the undersized lots. So the way I did it was each one, so this is the data set for less than or equal to a quarter acre. So these are non-Heights properties at the top. And then these are all the properties in the Heights. So the reason why I would want to talk with the Heights is because the majority of these properties in the smaller range are going to be in their jurisdiction. I did not include Deering Harbor because they have their own zoning. So this is all non-Heights properties. And then I go into Heights properties. Needless to say, it does make your eyes go a little squirrely after a while. But this is essentially the process I went through. And then I also started working on a smaller breakdown because, you have a half acre and then you get a quarter acre, 3/4 acre. It's a big gap in between. So I took that and I started breaking that down even smaller to see how many non-conforming lots you'd cause if you did a half acre and then the intervals between that and 3/4 acre. And it's still, depending on the one you choose, we can still do it and create minimal nonconformity, but preserve the current character of the neighborhoods and not create too much hardship. but I want to make sure I have all the data points right, so I'm still finishing the SFLA calculations. But is this something that you guys would be willing to look at?
First of all, I commend you for doing this work, and thank you.
Yes.
I'd love to look at it, I'd love to work on it with you.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like this is a year to 18 months worth of work to get something here. We have a moratorium, we're up against.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've done 99% of the work here. I mean, it's,
But also, I think your statements earlier, I have a slightly different view. Like you're talking about the smaller lots, non-conformity. What's your upper limit on lots that are above an acre, that are 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 acres?
it's the 6,000 square foot cap that we're putting on all lots right now.
Mhm.
I'm using that as like the cap
And that's
because,
living area.
yes,
Because one thing you want to probably work into this is that our gross square footage concept. It seems like it would fit better here. But
I think you're gonna have the same problem with the gross square footage that we had when we originally discussed it. You're still constrained by percentage of lot coverage. So you can't exceed 40% of your lot coverage in a certain zone. You can't exceed 25% of your lot coverage in a certain zone. But, the SFLA is to reduce the bulk of your home, your accessory home. It doesn't mean you can't have a dry garage. It doesn't, but you still can't exceed your lot coverage and you still have to stay within your setbacks. So I think,
also one of the complaints also that's out there, it's just not these big buildings on these little lots. It's main house, 2 accessory buildings, and the size of that, the magnitude of that, which can be reduced by the pyramid law.
no, not, I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking at it, no, because you can still redesign your house however you want to get as many square feet as you want. It doesn't mean that you're reducing the density on that lot, or it doesn't mean that you're actually reducing the size of the structure. No, you're changing the shape. You don't have to change the size to change the shape. You could change the orientation. Like on Bowditch Road, they could just take that whole thing, turn it around, slap it in the middle. They're done. They meet the pyramid and they meet all their setbacks, and there's no problem there. Except now there's a massive wall of house staring down a row of neighbors. So, that's where I'm coming to the conclusion that this isn't going to solve what people are complaining about.
I like it, but
It does need more work, and I need to talk to
like,
people about it,
is
but
it possible to get this ready for April 15th if we're going to meet the moratorium deadline? Because we've got the large house law in, and passing that will meet what we need to do in order to lift the moratorium.
right.
But I think we need this in conjunction.
Well, I think we can close the moratorium and then continue to work on this. Like, there's no reason, once you change it to an area variance and you have your cap at 6,000 square feet, then you've solved the excessively large home solution. I mean, that's it, So then it's just a matter of the perception, handling the perception of people building large things on small lots that people are complaining about. So, and that's, technically, on Bowditch Road, they're still under 6,000 square feet if they remove the house, but people are upset because it's really big and it's on a small lot and it's impacting the neighbors. So that's a separate situation than looking at homes that are 10,000, 12,000, 13,000 square feet. You can close the moratorium and then still work on this and.
Exactly. Pass both the SFLA law and the pyramid law while we work on this, and it's going to be fine.
I do not think the pyramid law is the solution. I think it's going to cause more problems and it's not going to do what you think it's going to do.
Well, I think
And I think it's going to negatively impact the C zone more than any other zone.
I live in the season.
I know, and you'll be non-conforming.
Yeah, that's
You'll be
okay. I'm okay with
non-conforming.
that.
But, I don't think everybody else is. It's a hardship for people to have to go to the ZBA if, let's say you have a garage that you put in legally that meets all your setbacks, and now you just want to put a second story on it for an apartment. Now you have to go to the ZBA. You have to hire an engineer. You have to hire an attorney. You have to pay the fees to go to the
So we do
ZBA.
that anyway.
No, you
Hire an
don't.
engineer and the attorney.
No, you don't. You shouldn't have to get an attorney to have a building permit application submitted. So I feel like this is not going to solve the problem. I'm struggling to understand how this is going to solve the problem. If you can convince me that the pyramid law will solve the problem, I'm open to listening, but I'm having trouble figuring it out myself.
Okay, it solves certain parts of the problem, and the density, the Bowditch Road example is not the only example of density. But the other thing people are complaining about are these massive houses on bigger lots, but maybe not huge lots, but bigger lots, that are, number one, an eyesore, but also, block the view of the water from everybody else. So the pyramid law addresses that aspect of it.
I mean, yes and no,
sure,
because those
I
lots
like what you're
are,
doing here, and like I said, I'm happy to work with you on this, but I think we need to pass what's on the table now, and this can replace it right there, because I think there's a lot more work to be done here.
okay, I mean, I'm not going to vote to pass the pyramid law. I don't think it's the right solution, and I think it's going to cause a lot of problems. So I disagree with it. I think there's a better option. I think we need to work towards a better solution than what we're proposing.
I'm not sure we're disagreeing there, and if this is a better solution, I'm happy to work with you.
But then
on it.
why pass
Let's
a
get
bad
this done.
solution? Why pass a bad
Because it's not a
solution when
bad
there's a better
solution.
one?
It's not a bad solution, it gets.
It's
us through the
impactful,
moratorium.
it does have an impact.
It's gonna have, but it's not gonna be, it's not gonna have the
Negative
same
impact.
impact across the board. It's gonna impact C-zone and substandard lots more than it's gonna impact A.
All right, thank you. End of discussion.
Excuse me. This is our work session. We're gonna be setting the public hearing for the pyramid law on April 15th. The public hearing will not happen until May 6th.
Okay.
We were not planning on adopting it until June
June
3rd.
3rd.
So I would say, let's continue with this. Let's see how heavy of a
You
lift
said that
this is.
You said that, or it's on SharePoint.
Yeah, I'll finish making sure the data's correct and then
all right.
I'll. We can continue down the path with the pyramid law, setting public hearing, having a public hearing, and then deciding whether or not we want to pick it up. My biggest concern is if we can't get this done fast enough and the moratorium is lifted, but we've got this in the works, will people be rushing because they've been waiting a year in order to do their special permits? Once they make their application, they would be subject to the
Correct.
large house law. But they wouldn't be subject to this. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen. So, like, are we gonna have a rush of people who may try and like slide something in? But this would be helpful with if we can't get it done. And I'm just, so, like, how does the pyramid law factor into that then? Like, does it help?
That could be a consequence of it. And
Mhm.
I know the pyramids, not a perfect solution here, but the purpose of it is to limit the scale of the building as it approaches the property lines. So it's supposed to, not be as, onerous as it gets closer to the property lines. That's a purpose of the pyramid. Meg, would you be more in line with supporting it if you exempted C-zone?
Then why bother? Because we already have it with the A and double A in the side yard setbacks at 25 and 30 feet. I mean, it's
No,
just.
but you were saying that the pyramid law would really, screw people who live in the C zone. So if we exempted C zone from the pyramid law as a compromise.
I'll have to think about it. Because it's C, B, and B1 are all negatively impacted more so than A and double A.
We could
Unless you're in the
also,
heights, and no matter what, it hurts.
yeah, what was on the table also was potentially in B and B1 exempting, businesses from the pyramid. But again, I'm just saying as far as potentially discussing and compromising. And this could be a stopgap measure while we explore the FAR for substandard lots.
All right, I'll think about it. I'll see what I can come up with. And Stephen, do you have anything written anywhere that kind of speaks to what we're trying to accomplish here, so that we're like halfway towards having something that we can modify to fit this? Or are we starting from scratch on drafting legislation?
But I have, because we were discussing it as an alternative to the max SFLA. We were talking about a floor area ratio model. So I do have something that we could probably tweak, but it would be, from scratch for substandard.
Maybe you could prioritize that a little bit amongst all of our other
I mean,
priorities.
the way I did it, I kept the max of the 6,000 SFLA at the 1 or 1.5 acre lots, because that's a conforming lot size. And so it's mostly like a substandard lot kind of law is kind of what we're looking at here, not necessarily for the conforming lots. It's more so for non-conforming lots.
But how big is AA? Because isn't that a 2 acre
Double
minimum?
A is 2 acre minimum. And A zone is 1 acre minimum.
Correct.
To A and C. I think C is supposed to be 1 acre as well. So it's something to think about. I'll clean up the data, make sure it's all correct, and then I'll send it to everybody. We can think about it.
Yeah, I'll work with Meg to have something in substance, like incorporating her ideas into a proposed law.
Meantime, we'll continue stepping through what we've been doing.
What's that do to the timeframe though?
We just keep stepping through large house and pyramid.
It doesn't change the timeframe.
Yeah, if we keep those two on the same time frame, and we just see whether or not this can fit into it, or if we have to at some point, like say, okay, we're going to adopt large house, definitely pyramid. We'll see where we feel on that and how this is going. And we do have a number of weeks. See.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I don't know how to read the tea leaves at the moment.
No, you'll have to see how it goes.
I'm interested to see how we can improve this.
Yeah. Pyramid law, is this ready so that we can set the public hearing on the 15th? Is there anything else that needs to be revisited here?
I'd still like to take B&B 1 out of it, but. We're exempt commercial, but it's, yeah. It's just.
I think it's ready.
I can live with that. So, okay, so, yeah, then we can start to take pyramid law off of agendas going forward. Okay. Next is board member reports. Are you hovering? Okay. You need something else? Okay.
I don't have anything.
Okay. You want to go or I can go?
I can go. I don't have a ton this week. We had green options on Thursday, and we talked about community choice aggregation, a different way of kind of sourcing your energy. So we talked about that for a little bit. And then on Saturday, there was a repair cafe at the library, which was a lot of fun. We repaired a couple of lamps. I fixed Belle. Her dress was torn, and so we had to fix some dolls, and it was fun. We had a really good time. Repaired some sweaters, so it was nice. Instead of things going to a landfill, they went back into circulation. And so that was kind of it, because I touched on the rest of the stuff at the last work session. So nothing too crazy, and then I've just been playing with numbers. I've got a couple of things. Just looking for something I left to do the room. I had a couple of different meetings. Okay, EMS met, and
Their calls, the number of calls this year are like 20 to 30 above normal. So it's just been a busier year. They've instituted a shift system for the volunteers, which is working. So they're, constantly trying to make things better. And part of the rationale in a shift system is you've got different volunteers. Instead of them always like just being on call and responding when they can, they're having people sort of sign up for shifts that they know that they can be available. So it takes the pressure off of somebody who may or may not, like, oh, should I go? But if they know that there's a primary group that has signed up for the shift, then better lifestyle for the volunteers. So that sounded good. One of the things that I want to look into with town employees is who works for us that's a volunteer, and are we allowing them? It's our ambulance corps. We want to be supportive and set the example for other businesses. So what are we doing with respect to our employees? Are we letting them go out on calls? How do they feel about it?
Yeah.
So it's something I want to dig into a little bit deeper, just to make sure that
That's good.
that we're setting a good example for the community, because it is such an important service. Community Housing Board met on Thursday, whatever day that was, Thursday. We're going to start the first draft of the RFP next week, I guess actually this week, and looking at dates for public input on the designs for the 3 different parcels, possibly Memorial Day weekend. There may be a dry run in early May, 4th or 5th. We'll get those dates. I think that they're, my other hat over Fire Commissioner's treasurer, they were talking about allowing that building to be used for the public sessions. The ADU grant process, that was probably it. I also met with various homeowners associations yesterday, and that was a really good meeting. We discussed various drinking water concerns, talked about testing in various neighborhoods. I think that going forward, it seems as if the preference would be to keep test results private, so that if we do another program, I know that there was discussion about whether or not, if we wanted to be able to receive the data for specific properties, but most everyone felt that if the data was useful in the current format, being broken down by towns, greater participation would happen with remaining anonymous on the specific data.
But still, the data will come to the town.
Yes, oh yeah, no, we definitely get the data. It's just broken down by, by sections as opposed to specifics. And what else did we go over? Comprehensive plan review, just by, making sure the homeowners associations get brought in. They thought a public, forum that we bring in a facilitator, that worked when we were doing the housing plan. So I'll make sure to arrange that when we have those public hearings. And it did work really well.
And we did that for the public hearing for the housing plan.
Yes.
Wasn't that the public?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so
was
that
over
was
at
the
the
same
school.
concept
Yeah.
that we were thinking of when we talked about it.
Yes. So we'll do that. We talked about ZBA wetlands and special permits, and the homeowners associations were setting up a process so that when someone has a permit application, they have to do a neighbor notification. We're also going to include the presidents of the homeowners association, so that the Heights does a very good job of staying on top of that and making sure that they represent the neighborhood association. And because it does have impacts on the neighborhoods, just trying to spread, have that roll out to all homeowners associations. And there was one comment about we've got 10 days on notification versus 30 days, depending on the application. So that's something to look at, because 10 days is an awfully short timeframe for notification and response time. So we should just consider it. Slows the process down, but it, allows for better input from the community. Bike lanes was on the topic, and we just discussed more what's being done. And we'll talk to Kenny more. He's got stuff going on, and we can bring that back to the homeowners associations as well as to the public in general. Code enforcement was talked about a little bit, just talked a little bit about the, the process, concerns about unequal enforcement. There were some specific issues brought up. Noise enforcement, things like that. So just have some points to look, take with me to look at further. So that was it. But I thought it was a good meeting. And tonight, I should have mentioned this, last week, Ola Alexandra Hakim, our social worker, has a program at the school tonight at 6 o'clock, I believe. I'll just look at the calendar. I'm pretty sure it's 6 o'clock, for Know Your Rights. It's for the Spanish-speaking community. It's just information about, becoming legal, tracks and things like that. So planning on going because I'm curious and want to also start to learn some of the concerns that that segment of our community has. And I may at some future point, I want to have, I had the homeowners associations yesterday. At some point, I want to meet with the Chamber of Commerce and any business community that wants to participate, just to, in my outreach into the community, I also want to tap into the Spanish-speaking community as well. And that's all that I had. Amber, do you have anything? Stephen?
No.
Okay. We have to discuss a couple of employment histories for employees in executive session. So I have a motion to go into executive session.
Amber,
Sorry. Oh,
I just wanted to say, Cam's not on, but
no. Come on up because we're still on.
I know you guys agreed about the site plan. But to me, the fair thing would be, my wife spent all this time, all the families all spent all this time, it would be, the fair thing would be to close the gate until you get the site plan done. Why would you leave the gate open? It's been closed for 20 years until you get a site plan. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that that's a dangerous area and that the guy that's doing it now shouldn't be allowed. He's the Commissioner of Public Works. You guys have say over it. If you're gonna do a site plan, close the gate, do the site plan, and when the site plan's done, we'll say, oh, okay, we can open the gate, or we can close the gate. Don't leave it open, Amber, now, and let him just do what he wants to do with all those guys, in and out of the gate. Just have him close the gate, do your site plan, and then make a decision, an equal, fair decision for everybody involved. Because if not, I'm not gonna stop at the gate. I'm gonna go a lot deeper, all right, to a lot of things. And I got a lot of people that know stuff and can help me go deeper. Well, what I'm asking for, you should take a out there and put a padlock on the gate. Do the site plan and then make your decision, a fair decision. I know that's ghost locked. It's been ghost locked for 20 years. Nobody actually locked the gate. The only person that opened the gate was Ken Lewis. And I know he's supposed to be a friend of mine or whatever, but he's really gone out of control here. With all his signs, his lights, his gate, everybody else. They go in there like it's like their personal driveway. It was never open. So could you do me a favor and contemplate that about maybe closing the gate until you get the map plan or whatever you guys, whatever engineers come in. I appreciate all your help and everything, and thank you all.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Take care. Keep up the love.
Go to executive session? Well, because I do it at the beginning of this meeting, that's.
Oh, yeah, I make a motion.
Okay. Second, anyone?
Second.
All in favor?